Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live. We're your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. We cover breaking news, culture, dramatic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state, and that is exactly what we are living through nowadays. Breaking news: the U.S. Senate passes an $886 billion military spending bill with a Bitcoin and crypto AML provision, right? So they're focusing mostly on crypto mixers or Bitcoin mixers and anonymity enhancing crypto assets, right? And this is a continuation of a trend. We know that the US Treasury, for the first time in its history, sanctioned open source software and jailed the developer of Tornado Cash. Now we know that is not that wasn't a Bitcoin native project, but nonetheless, it is open source software, right? Just the demonization of just software itself is just absolutely crazy. I kind of see where the trend is heading. Something that we've said on the show many times is I don't think that current US sanction policy is compatible with Bitcoin. And the reason I say that, because Bitcoin is this open monetary network. And the way that the current, system works is that there's a bureaucratic elite. There's a bureaucratic elite in DC that gets to decide who's entitled to use money and who's not entitled to use money. I think eventually you're going to see a clash between those two worlds. I think the systems, the money controls that they have in place, that they've had in place for decades, aren't going to be as effective when people are using a Bitcoin standard. How are they going to react to that? Are they going to demonize that? Are they going to say we can't have a world where people can transact freely? What are the unintended consequences of a world where people can transact freely? That's another interesting question. I truly believe, and maybe I'm wrong and naive to think this, I'm not a fortune teller, but I think that if you fix the money, you fix a lot of people's economic grievances all around the world. And I think a lot of the horrible things that you see coming out of humanity are due to broken fiat money. And I think that if you fix the incentive structure, you fix the money, I think you generally will fix the world, right? So that's really what I'm focused on. But I think obviously the powers that be, the established players, whether it's the central banks or governments, they're kind of in on the same team, so to speak. I think they're gonna throw. I think they're gonna throw everything and anything at this thing in order to maintain that privilege of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. So very interesting times. We're going to cover the news today. And surprisingly, the Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis, signed up to this bill. And who also signed up to this bill was Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is the anti-Bitcoin senator. So it's just interesting, what were the concessions in order to get this type of bipartisan approval on this bill? I have no idea. We're gonna dive into that today, but I'm just, look, guys, I'll be frank with you. I'm not a fan of AML and KYC and all that. I think it excludes a lot of people all over the world, and I just don't think that it's more of a control system than it is a fighting crime system. And also this narrative that Bitcoin is used for money laundering, right? Because you'll hear that a lot. Like Bitcoin is used for money laundering. Bitcoin is used to finance terrorism. I just want to remind everyone, the vast majority of terrorism or money laundering or drug cartels or whatever, it's financed by the US dollar. It's financed by cash. It is not financed by Bitcoin. So maybe it's the Bitcoiner in me, but I truly believe they're using that as a straw man argument, to be frank. But anyways, no more delay. Let's bring up our very special guest, part of the progressive case for Bitcoin. Trey, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
So you are the host of a podcast, is that correct?
That is correct. The Progressive Bitcoiner.
Awesome. I'm confusing the name of the book with the podcast, and that's my bad.
You're not the first. That's all right.
All right. And so what is the purpose of your podcast? What is the focus of it?
Yeah, well, the podcast was founded back in late 2021 by Mark Stefani. And then when he took a step back, him and I met and kind of talked about this transition period. He's a full-time physician. So kind of focusing a lot on that. And then he transitioned. And so I took over as host. There was about a 6-month period from like December to June of this year where there was a gap of no new episodes. So we started the podcast back up middle of June. So we've had like 6 new episodes since the relaunch. And really the podcast is about talking about progressive values and talking about Bitcoin and telling people that these two things aren't mutually exclusive and that they actually can really complement each other really well. So really it's just a nexus of progressive values, left values, and Bitcoin. That's the main focus of the show.
Awesome, man. Well, happy to have you on the show today and to talk about your project, talk about your podcast. But first, before we start the show, I want to bring up my legendary co-host, always optimistic. What are you optimistic today, Opti? Are you nihilistic?
I'm neutral fields today. Neutral fields. Yes, very neutral. But actually, guys, happy Independence Day! Happy USAF Day! Woo! All right, man. What a day. What a day. For you guys that don't know, 2017, Bitcoiners ended the block size war, successfully deploying UASF software upgrade, making it clear who really controls the network, i.e. you guys running the node. So continue to run a node. Make sure you are verifying your own transactions. And, who cares about these Bitcoin companies and all these people with special interests? All that matters is you guys verifying your Bitcoin transactions, the users of the networks. You guys really control the network. This is what it's all about. This is why we tell you guys every single day to take Bitcoin into self-custody and run a node, because no longer do we have to trust middlemen. You can be your own bank. It's almost like a meme. It's almost a meme, right, Nico?
I mean, it's crazy, it's crazy what happens when you get rid of the intermediaries. And I think what we're seeing, like, whether it's a reaction from governments or just reaction in general from the intermediaries, is they're trying to like justify their existence. They're like, we're still necessary. You still need us. But, I think Bitcoin is a testament. It's like, they're no longer necessary. But hey, you know what? It's just interesting to see how all this is playing.
Still an uphill battle, though. We're still uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I don't know. I'll ask Trey. Like, Trey, do you think we're in the then they fight you stage? I would say yes. Yes. No.
Yes, but also I think there's so much more we just can't foresee in terms of this battle. I mean, there a lot of people have the notion, and I do as well. It's like, man, how did they not squash this thing like 7-8 years ago when they could have, right? So I think it can't really be at this point, but I still think we're just getting started with a lot of this. So I personally am very hesitant, obviously with Hex recently and people being like, yes, SEC, and then something will come out tomorrow and we're like, fuck them. So it's like, I think I'm a little nervous. I'm a little anxious, but it keeps doing its thing. I think short term, especially political cycle, a lot that, we focus on the progressive Bitcoiner. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's going to be okay in the long run.
100%. As long as the next block is coming in, TikTok next block, I think everything's good. Anyways, everybody, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the show. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. Guys, check out the Stamp Seed website, and you can scan the QR code on your screen right now, and it will take you directly to the titanium seed phrase storage kit. And you can use the promo code SIMPLY to get yourself a major discount. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to explain to your grandchildren that you lost your generational wealth because you stored it on paper. Don't do that. Store it on titanium. Scan the QR code now. Anyways, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 28,920 sats per dollar, 3,458 block height 801,229. Blocks to halving 38,771. Halving estimates April 20th, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 4,723 Bitcoin. Capacity value $136 million. Realized monetary inflation 1.76%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin $562 billion with the B. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 4.3. My favorite two stats out of all these are the realized monetary inflation, which will continue to go down forever because it's Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin versus gold market cap. That percentage will continue to go up. So Bitcoin stays winning. TikTok, next block. Anyways, I wanted to react to this video. It goes on to say, is a Bitcoin magazine tweet, and says, Galaxy Digital CEO, I think the most important thing that happened this year was BlackRock CEO getting orange pilled on Bitcoin. So anyways, let's check out the clip and then we will talk about it.
We do know that Bitcoin is by far the leading cryptocurrency, and you think will remain that for a while?
I do. I think the most important thing that happened this year in Bitcoin is Larry Fink. He got orange pilled, as we say. Orange pill is when you take a non-believer and you make him a believer in Bitcoin. And Larry was a non-believer, and now he says, hey, this is going to be a global currency. People around the world all trust it. Well, BlackRock is the biggest asset
BlackRock is
manager.
now doing an ETF, or trying to do an ETF for Bitcoin.
Yes.
Is that a big change in the industry?
Yes. For Larry in particular, right, who's the CEO of this iconic company, to say, I believe in this, right? That's kind of huge, because again, like when Elizabeth Warren says, well, I don't believe in Bitcoin, I'm like, well, Elizabeth, Larry Fink does, Stan Druckenmiller does, Jeff Yost does, the richest person in your state, Abby Johnson does. Like, just because you do doesn't mean it's not real, right? Value comes from when people believe there's value. And now we have this preponderance of evidence, 180 million people around the world that, without a gun to their head, take their hard-earned savings and store it in this community of people that run this technology, called Bitcoin.
I mean, I think that was beautifully said. Now, there's a couple things about Mike Novogratz, right? I think he has that Luna tattoo. So did he get that removed? That's an interesting question. Or does he still have it? I don't know. But regardless of, his views on alternative cryptocurrencies, also known as shitcoins, I think he said it perfectly. I think it is a very, very big deal that someone like Larry Fink, is signed up to this thing and signed up and, willing to go on this ride. BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world, right? They manage trillions of dollars, trillion with a T. That some of that money could potentially flow into Bitcoin. Now, we had Lawrence Lepard, we had Caitlin Long on the show, and they were talking about the dangers of a BlackRock ETF potential rehypothecation. We had Greg Foss and James Lavish. They're coming from the other side. They're saying, look, that's the whole point of a spot Bitcoin ETF. It's going to be transparent. They're not going to be able to do that so easily. I'll let you guys be the side. I'm always going to take the side of the paranoid Bitcoiner. If it's not your keys, not your Bitcoin, what's the point of buying a spot Bitcoin ETF? If you could buy Bitcoin, you could take it into self-custody. I personally wouldn't do that. I don't recommend it for you either. But, the reality is that a lot of people that are used to just, buying stocks on the stock market, and that's just what they're comfortable with, they're going to just find it easier. Just be like, okay, let me just buy this BlackRock spot ETF. Now, it's our job as Bitcoiners to really, break the Bitcoin echo chamber and get it into the minds of people that, hey, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. It's really an IOU. I think a lot of the world's problems would be fixed if a lot of people started holding their own money and stopped outsourcing that personal responsibility. I think a lot of the world's problems would go away, right? So, it kind of falls down to us. And Trey and I were talking, before we went on air, and we were talking about this idea of this transitionary period, right? Between the old world and this new bright orange future that we're heading into. And I think during the transitionary period, it's very, very important for Bitcoin evangelists, for Bitcoin memers, for Bitcoiners in general, really to push hard this idea of not your keys, not your Bitcoin. And remember, guys, I always said this, I had this pinned to the top of my Twitter for a very long time. If enough people take self-custody, we win, and there's nothing they could do about it. Anyways, Trey, I want to get your thoughts, and then we'll move on to Opti.
Yeah. Oh, well, gosh, that's a lot of different things you brought up. Yeah, I mean, coming from the left, and the easiest way to put it is coming from a lens of like being skeptical of big banks, kind of thinking Occupy, things like that. for me, this is a bit concerning, but I'm conflicted, right? It's like my own personal beliefs. But if this spot Bitcoin ETF brings more Bitcoin adoption and raises the price of Bitcoin and the world benefits from this hypothetically, then that's kind of where my conflict is at. I think, like you said, the Bitcoin kind of skeptic, not of Bitcoin, but just of the world that I live in, I'm a little nervous and hesitant to say this is a good thing. Long term, I don't think this is a good thing. Short term, I mean, people talk about it's going to pump the fuck out of our bags for, the next year and a half, 2 years. So that's the short term. Also, not to shout out another podcast, but I mean, I went on Peter's podcast. What Bitcoin did, Alex Leishman was on Peter's podcast recently. They had a really good episode, I thought, about the spot ETF. And, I kind of went into that. And then coming out of that, I'm like, is this good for Bitcoin? Like everything could be good for Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's going to win, it needs to be everywhere. That's kind of the argument they made. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, 100%. All right. If Bitcoin's going to win, it needs to be everywhere. And there was something that American Hodl tweeted the other day that I thought like really, really resonated with me. And it was like, hey, Anon, are you going to be okay with the Fed, or central banks starting to buy Bitcoin when it's at like $2.1 million a coin? Like you're going to have to be okay with that. Like, Bitcoin is for everyone. It's the money of enemies. And that includes central banks are going to want a piece of it. BlackRock is going to want a piece of it. And eventually I think governments are even going to want a piece of it. Like, we know that the US government has seized a lot of Bitcoin, but what they do is that they inevitably sell it. What happens when eventually, they want to keep that, they become hodlers themselves, right? It's kind of changes the dynamics of everything. And what I was saying to Opti yesterday, we were reacting to a mainstream CNBC anchor kind of reporting on Bitcoin. And I was like, Opti kind of sounds like us, bro. Like, his arguments kind of sound the same. Like 5-10 years from now, the mainstream will sound like Bitcoin maxis. They'll be using the same arguments. They'll be talking the same way. Right. And then Bitcoin will get out of this, this echo chamber that I believe it's in right now. Anyways, really good points, Trey. I want to get Opti's thoughts. I mean, I know Opti. Opti's more of a hardcore Bitcoiner than I am. He's more on the
I'm just more savage. You mince your words a little more than you're a little more tactful than I am. But man, first and foremost, Novograd's jeez. Like, man, I don't know. Look, I don't like talking shit on people, but everyone knows he's got that Luna tattoo. Like, what more do we need to say? But anyways, to Larry Fink and BlackRock and the changing of the tune in regards to Bitcoin. We've been talking about this for a while. And I think it's a huge wake up call to every asset manager around the world. And kind of what Trey's saying, on a long enough time frame, this could end really bad. Like, no, we do not advocate for anyone holding paper Bitcoin. You should be buying spot Bitcoin, taking Bitcoin into self-custody, running your own node. This is the best practices because you never know if they will try to rehypothecate Bitcoin. You never know whether they will try to fork Bitcoin, all that stuff. They do have the money printer in their back pocket, and I'm sure they will try some crazy shenanigans. So that is not something that we avoid or take lightly, but it is very interesting to see how quickly the tune has changed in regard to Bitcoin after Larry Fink endorsed Bitcoin, or rather BlackRock said they're going to have an ETF. And it's almost like it's been a signal to everyone out there that has any kind of fiat currencies, any asset managers that are holding other people's investments. Now they're all looking at Bitcoin, whether they've been looking at Bitcoin. Now they are starting to look at Bitcoin. And I think in the next year or two, obviously going into the halving, and we don't know when this is going to actually, this BlackRock ETF is going to actually get deployed and, be allowed on the public market. I'm guessing it's going to be at the top or close to the top of the next bull run. So what's that, like a year or two from now? But I think still up to that point, it's going to continue to be signal to anyone out there that doesn't have Bitcoin that they might need to get some Bitcoin just in case it catches on, especially when the richest asset managers in the world all want some exposure to Bitcoin. And you brought up HODL, and I'm stealing this meme from him because I really like it. Not only is Bitcoin for enemies, but also you, the Anon, you, the Bitcoiner out there, are going to have to make it through the HODL buyout zone. This is that HODL buyout zone. They're going to want your Bitcoin, guys. Do not get lulled to sleep via the fiat price of Bitcoin. You have what they want. It's the scarcest asset in the world. 21 million Bitcoin and less than 21 million Bitcoin. So, steal yourself now. Make sure you know why you're hodling that Bitcoin. Make sure you protect yourself. Make sure your Bitcoin isn't cold storage, because it's going to get crazy. This roller coaster is going to get absolutely bananas in the next year or two. And I hate doing like this time might be different, but I don't know, man. It really does feel like this time might be different.
Don't sell your Bitcoin to BlackRock. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't sell your Bitcoin to BlackRock. Don't sell your Bitcoin to central banks. Don't sell your Bitcoin to governments. Keep that Bitcoin for you and your family. Don't do that. Don't be in that position where you have to explain it to your grandchildren one day. Anyways, guys, if you're enjoying the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. We've been on a roll every single live stream for the last, I think it's been 3 weeks now, Opti. We've broken 100 likes in the first hour of the live stream. So if you're enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button on YouTube. And if you're watching us on Rumble, shout out to our Rumble fans as well. Smash that like button as well. Helps tell the algos to push the orange signal. So we appreciate y'all. Anyways, everybody, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the numbers. We got a lot to talk about. But before we get into the numbers, I want to give a shout out to the largest Bitcoin conference on the face of the earth, Bitcoin 2024. It's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee this year. You can use the promo code simply to get yourself a massive discount to the tickets. It's July 25th through the 27th, 2024, the year of the halving. You don't want to miss it. For a GA ticket, it's $349. For an industry pass, it's $849. For a whale pass, it's $4,749. Like I said, you can use the promo code simply to get yourself a major discount to Bitcoin 2024. You definitely don't want to miss the biggest Bitcoin celebration of the year, Bitcoin 2024. Anyways, everybody, let's jump straight into the news. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
All right, everybody. Also, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. It's important that you stack friends who stack sats. I totally get a lot of y'all where it's like you don't see a lot of things in common with a lot of people that are still stuck in the fiat matrix. There will be a time in the not too distant future where the most sought after demographic will be Bitcoiners, principled, devoted, patient, diverse, and loyal individuals who are the wealthiest single demographic. It might be worth your while to make as many Bitcoin connections as you can now while the getting is good. What's the best way to meet other Bitcoiners in real life? The Orange Pill app. The Orange Pill app is building the social layer for Bitcoin. The Bitcoin circular economy is coming, and this is where it starts. Within real life connections, find other Bitcoiners who live close to you, find plebs while you're traveling, or find nearby Bitcoin events. Plus, Orange Pill app recently enabled zaps. You can zap your friends or you can zap events to help with the cost to organize your next Bitcoin meetup. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, and when you sign up, you'll get 10,000 sats. Stack friends who stack sats. Download the Orange Pill app today. Anyways, everybody, let's get to news. The breaking news, so something that I mentioned in the intro, the U.S. Senate passes a $886 billion military spending bill with crypto AML provision. I mean, this is a little bit poetic in a way, right? They spend this massive spending bill, $886 billion. They're spending it on war. They're spending it on the military. We know they don't have the money to spend this, right? The US government spends $1 trillion every single year, more than $1 trillion that it collects in tax revenue. So how are they able to do this? Well, they're able to print the difference. They're able to print money. And remember, every time they print, it's a wealth redistribution mechanism from the lower and middle classes that don't have the means to save in assets to the very, very wealthy, and also back to the government, right? This is fiat money is an enemy of the middle class, and it's also an enemy of the lower classes as well. So I just find it's a little bit poetic, right, in a way, because with this spending bill, right, spending money that they don't have, right, they also include a Bitcoin and crypto AML provision, right? So it's very interesting. Anyways, let's get to some of the details. The U.S. Senate on Thursday evening passed the 2024 National Defense Authorization, which included a provision that tightens oversight over financial institutions engaged in crypto trading and takes aim at crypto mixers and, quote, anonymity enhancing crypto assets. The amendment was brought forward by a bipartisan group of U.S. senators comprised of Kristen Gillibrand, Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator, Senator Elizabeth Warren, the anti-Bitcoin senator, and Roger Marshall, who said in a press release that the move represented, quote, one of the most substantial congressional actions to date regarding crypto assets. The amendment was crafted by provisions taken from the 2023 Lummis-Gillibrand Responsible Financial Innovations Act and Senator Warren's and Senator Marshall's Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act introduced in 2022. Specifically, it requires that the Secretary of Treasury, quote, establish examination standards for crypto assets, which would help examiners better assess risk and ensure compliance with money laundering and sanction laws. In addition, it requires the Treasury Department to conduct a study on, quote, combating anonymous crypto asset transactions, including the use of crypto mixers that are sometimes used to obfuscate funds, right? So again, the demonization of privacy is continuing. And also, right, combating anonymous crypto asset transaction. That is a very broad term, right? We're hearing the words of unhosted wallet. We're hearing the words of hosted wallet. How long until they say that transactions between two unhosted wallet that don't require a third-party intermediary is considered an anonymous crypto asset transaction? Remember the laws that they're trying to pass, right? Every transaction over $10,000 in Bitcoin, crypto, whatever in the United States, they require for you to send the social security number, address, and name of the person you're sending that $10,000 or above in Bitcoin or in crypto. They require you to do that. So how long until that number goes lower? And remember, that $10,000 limit was established during the 1970s, specifically the Bank Secrecy Act that passed in 1970. And when they passed that, if you adjust it for inflation, $10,000 at the time was worth $78,000 today. So the number stayed the same, but inflation did its thing, right? So when I read this, I'm always skeptical. I'm always cautious. I'm always like, wait a second. We know how Elizabeth Warren feels about Bitcoin. So think about the concessions that that Senator Cynthia Lummis had to give to Elizabeth Warren for this to be bipartisan. And that's why I'm skeptical of it. And look, we have to also remember that they talk about illicit finance and illicit transactions. Bitcoin is an open ledger. Every single Bitcoin transaction will stay there till the end of time. You'll be able to see it and track it. You can't say the same of cash. And mind you, the vast majority of so-called money laundering and criminal activity, whether it's related to drugs or terrorism, happens with cash. It doesn't happen with Bitcoin. So you can make the argument that, oh, okay, perhaps it's a preemptive measure. Fine, I would believe that if I didn't know how Elizabeth Warren felt about the industry. She doesn't like the industry. So I think that this is just a very convenient type of straw man in order to justify taking away more privacy from Americans. And remember, if we go back in time, remember the Tornado Cash thing that I was talking about in the beginning of the show, right? For the first time on August 8, 2022, the U.S. Department of Treasury Office of Foreign Asset Control sanctioned crypto mixer Tornado Cash. So, and think about what the precedent of that was. Usually when they set sanctions, it's against a government or an individual. They set a sanction against open source software. It's a very, very dangerous precedent to set. And it's that's very scary, that idea. How long until they say, hey, you know what? Bitcoin's an open source software. You know, you have the vast majority of people transacting via, quote, unhosted wallets, to use their words. You have people taking self-custody. Therefore, we can't control the money flows as much as we used to because people are transacting outside the system of which we control. How long until they say, you know what, we have to sanction this as well, right? If you don't call this stuff immediately, it tends to kind of trickle down over time. And the example I already gave, right, which is this idea of when they passed the Bank Secrecy Act $10,000 at that time was the equivalent to $78,000 today. And at the time, people, I'm sure, were okay with it. They're like, $78,000, that sounds reasonable. That's a huge amount of money. But remember what they tried to pass in the infrastructure bill last year. They tried to pass a provision that every $600 transaction was going to be reported. So the question that I have to you is, when does it stop? And mind you, at the same time, what's also happening is the introduction of central bank digital currencies, right? So look, when I say it, when I say Bitcoin or slavery, I'm not being hyperbolic. I truly mean it 100%. These are the two, things in front of you: a system of censorship, a system of surveillance, or a system of freedom, an open monetary network. For me, it's an obvious decision. Anyways, it goes on to say, quote, cracking down on illicit finance in the crypto asset industry is essential for weeding out bad actors, ensuring crypto assets are not used to evade sanctions and fund terrorism. So, one of the sanctions that they have is against Cuba. So and Cubans, we've been hearing amazing stories where Cubans are using Bitcoin in order to receive money from overseas. We've heard the very similar story coming out of Afghanistan as well, right? So I think that the whole idea of sanctions is a necessary discussion, because obviously they've weaponized the US dollar, right, in order to achieve political means. And do you blame people for seeking an alternative? It's almost as if they're like penalized for that. Anyway, so let's get into the crux of the bill, some of the details, and kind of like break it down, and then we'll have a discussion. So the name of the act is the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act. It would extend Bank Secrecy Act responsibilities, including Know Your Customer, to digital asset wallet providers, miners, validators, and other network participants that may act to validate, secure, facilitate digital asset transactions. Wait a second. So if you are a wallet, you have to include KYC. If you're a miner, you have to know what transactions, you're including. What is going on here? This is very scary language, because this is not how Bitcoin works. Are they only going to allow pools that are OFAC compliant? That's very scary wording. It kind of makes sense why Elizabeth Warren would sign up to this. Anyways, address a major gap with respect to unhosted digital wallets, which would allow individuals to bypass AML and sanctions checks by directing FinCEN to finalize and implement its December 2020 proposed rule, which would require banks and money service businesses to verify customer and counterparty identities, keep records, and file reports in relation to certain digital assets involving unhosted wallets or wallets hosted in a non-BSA compliant jurisdictions. Right? This demonization. It's like they're putting unhosted in in quotes. They're trying to tell you, they're trying to vocalize that somehow it's abnormal to have an unhosted wallet. Self-custody is abnormal. I don't know about you guys, but I've never read the term unhosted wallet in the Bitcoin white paper. It goes on to say, direct FinCEN to issue guidance to financial institutions on mitigating the risk of handling, using, or transacting with digital assets that have been anonymized using digital asset mixers and other anonymity-enhancing technologies. Strengthen enforcement of BSA compliance by directing the Treasury Department to establish an AML CFT compliance examination review process for MSBs and other digital asset entities with BSA obligations, and directing the Securities and Exchange Commission and Commodities and Trading Commission to establish AML and CFTC compliance examination and review process for the entities they regulate. Extend BSA rules regarding reporting of foreign bank accounts to include digital assets by requiring United States persons engaged in a transaction with a value of greater than $10,000 in digital assets through one or more offshore accounts to file a report of foreign bank and financial accounts with Internal Revenue Service. Mitigate the illicit finance risk of digital asset ATMs by directing FinCEN to ensure that digital asset ATM owners and administrators regularly submit and update the physical addresses of the kiosks they own or operate, and verify customer and counterparty identity. I mean, this first one is absolutely nuts. Like, there's so many implications of that. It's very vague language. I can't even imagine what the actual bill says. extend Bank Secrecy Act responsibilities, including KYC requirements to digital asset wallet providers, miners, validators, and other network participants that may act to validate, secure, or facilitate digital asset transactions. How long until they say that if your wallet does not have KYC implemented, this is non-kosher Bitcoin? How long until they say that? How long until they say, no, you can't have those transactions? How long until they say American mining pools can't accept certain Bitcoin transactions? How long until they say that? The writing is on the wall. It's undeniable at this point. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed in a way because I'm surprised Senator Cynthia Lummis signed up to this. That's what I got to say. I'm very surprised. So anyways, that's my take. Trey, what's your take on this? And we'll move on to Opti.
I think my initial take when I've been hearing this for years is just law enforcement is really lazy. Like since the Patriot Act, they want to try to eliminate bad things from happening, period, around the world. That's impossible, right? And I think FBI, CIA, law enforcement, you got to do law enforcement work, right? They want to just sit at a computer and so say, okay, we got them. That there's no option of this happening or whatever because everything has been sanctioned. Nothing is allowed. We know and see everything. They want to be extremely lazy about actually doing law enforcement work. So that's why they're trying to pass these things rather than doing what they used to have to do, which is get up and go actually find the bad guys doing the bad things. I think that's it. That's my main takeaway from this. And I hope to God more people wake up that actually know, right? A lot of these politicians are just going with it and not really thinking about what they're doing. So yeah, law enforcement just is lazy. That's what it is. And since the Patriot Act, this is just the new norm. So yeah, I'm deeply concerned. I think Bitcoiners, Bitcoin companies, people building out products and wallets are brilliant though, and really good at trolling the government and these people that want to shut them down. So I think the community is going to come up with creative solutions regardless of this though. So I think that's my optimistic take as well.
Yeah, I agree. And then Opti, what's your take? And then
well, first, love Trey's take for sure. He's definitely giving you the Opti take today. But I really do love the idea because we've talked about this before as well. Of police are going to actually have to do hard work instead of just do all this blanket statement stuff and just like drag net surveillance on everyone and basically make us all be criminals. But anyways, first and foremost, like at first I was like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this with that first article. And then you went through kind of the details, Nico. And it's like, yeah, I'm this is not good at all. Like, yeah, what's going on here?
At first it's like Nico's just talking mad shit.
That first article is like kind of like, okay, maybe there's some nuance here. And then you go through it by detail and you're like, what are they doing? Especially since Cynthia Lummis is a part of this. It's, I don't like talking smack on people, but I thought she was the Bitcoin politician. She is godmother to some really awesome Bitcoiners. So I don't know what is going on here, but this seems like it's going to do more harm than good. And this is a theme that I've noticed, and we've talked about this all the time on the show, that government regulation usually does more harm than good. And it really feels like this is one of those times where maybe the intentions were good. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that the intentions were good, but this just seems to hurt the whole industry in general, and also connecting this with what the SEC is doing. And it really gets my paranoid feelers going on. And we're definitely in the then they fight you stage. But again, I always say it as a troll, and I really do mean it. But, boomers write things down on paper and expect us not to take Bitcoin into self-custody or run software. So, I don't know, words are important. And again, this seems like it's going to do way more harm than good. And man, KYC is already a thing. Now they want to KYC wallets, miners. What is going on here? How did they even think this was a good idea? What kind of compromises were made so that we can get Elizabeth Warren to be okay with this?
That's it.
That we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Those are the compromises right there. That first passage is so broad that it's so all encompassing that it has very, very deep implications. And it's just I'm surprised that I'm not hearing a lot about this on Twitter, Opti. I think
only everyone's caring about Richard Hart.
Like it's like I think like like no one's like not enough people are talking about like this is bad. Like this is bad. Like I remember the first time it happened in 2022, people made a ruckus about it. They're like, no, fuck this, and it got shut down. And it's like supposedly this is bipartisan and they came together, but that wording is so generalized. What does that mean? KYC implementation into mining. What does that mean? Like what does that entail? Right? Validators, that means a node, right? So they want KYC software on a node. Like what the
OFAC
fuck
compliant chain.
What does that mean? Anyways,
But Nico, before we go on, also we should definitely connect this with what the EU has passed with the MiCA laws, and it's sounding very, very similar in the US. Like I thought we're the land of the free, home of the brave, and we're just as cucked as the EU. Like what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they're trying to maintain that privilege. Anyways, I want to read a passage from the Sovereign Individual, which I read every couple of episodes, but I think it was a great prediction, a great prediction on not only what is happening, but also a great prediction on the reaction from governments to what is happening in the first place. So the first passage says, new technologies will allow the holders of wealth to bypass the national monopolies that have issued and regulated money in the modern period. Their importance for controlling the world's wealth will be transcended by mathematical algorithms that have no physical existence. In the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. Lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sabotage useful technologies, and worse. Mind you, this book was written in the 1990s, and I think it completely predicts what the F is going on. Anyways, I think this is
wait, Nico, before we go on, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But I always say this as like a troll, like I love when the government tries to ban Bitcoin because it just proves that your politicians out there, your bureaucrats want you, the citizen, to have fun staying poor. Now, this is one of those then they attack you stages where they don't outright try to ban it. They try to do a roundabout way to control it. And again, just doubling down, politicians don't care about you and they want you to have fun staying poor. Like, convince me otherwise.
I mean, I would say that it's impossible for politicians to really care as long as the incentive structure is not aligned, right? You have an incentive structure where politicians, they get voted into office and they're incentivized to get as close as humanly possible to the money spigot, not necessarily do well by their constituents. So I think if you have a misaligned incentive structure, and I think if you do separate money from state, I think you will fix that. Anyways, speaking of what's going on, it's never been a more important time to run your own node. Reclaim ownership over your own money. If you're not using your own Bitcoin node, you're using someone else's. Get yourself your own Bitcoin node. Nodl, it enables you to connect both the Bitcoin and Lightning networks. Your Nodl acts as a backend to the most popular Bitcoin and Lightning applications you want to run. Running a personal Bitcoin node is the greatest addition you can make to your financial privacy. This is the Nodl Dojo. It's in red, and yes, that means it's absolutely faster. Run your own wallet backend with Samurai Dojo and enjoy the state-of-the-art coin joining with Samurai Whirlpool, both straight out of your Nodl hardware. So reclaim ownership over your money. Run your own Bitcoin node. If you don't want to build one yourself, you can buy a pre-made one, and we obviously recommend the Nodl. Anyways, guys, let's get to the culture. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, guys, I'm going to tell you about the largest Bitcoin festival on the West Coast, the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. It's going to be in Los Angeles, California, October 5th through the 6th. It's not going to be a conference this year. It's going to be a festival. Included speakers, many more to be announced, including Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert. We got Jimmy Song, we got Lynn Alden, we got Greg Foss, we got Alex Gladstein, we got Corey Clipson, we got Preston Pish, and many, many more. You guys don't want to miss the Pacific Bitcoin Festival in Los Angeles, California, October 5th through the 6th, 2023. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 21% off your tickets to the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. Anyways, Opti, what are we talking about today, my friend?
Yeah, so we got Trey from the Progressive Bitcoiner. So I
kept saying the progressive case for Bitcoin. I'm sorry, Trey.
Sorry, man.
And I love just to give our host a platform. So Trey, let's just start with what is the Progressive Bitcoiner, and then we'll move on the conversation from there.
Yeah, it's a podcast. My hope is that we can get some more people to put some stuff in that resources tab up there as well, to have some writings and things like this, maybe events in the future. But it's a podcast really bringing together, the nexus between progressive left values and Bitcoin. And the main motivation for this is that in a lot of the space, we talk a lot about these things, and a lot of folks from the left can be turned off. A lot of the folks from the left are hearing what Elizabeth Warren is saying, all these things we're talking about, and viewing it, oh, that's right-wing conspiracy, that's this and that. And it's like, no, Bitcoin is promoting human freedom. Freedom tech like Nostr is promoting human freedom. Let's articulate a message in a way people can understand and speak their language, as Jason Mayer, who wrote A Progressive's Case for Bitcoin, talks about as well. So that's really the whole point of the podcast, is to make sure people know Bitcoin isn't for any political camp. Bitcoin is for everyone, and it's this neutral, open protocol. So that's the main point of it.
So Opti, could you pull up that screen again, and could you go up? There was a piece, scroll up for a second. Yeah. So there was a piece, basically saying Elizabeth Warren's blind spot. And we were mentioning her today. She did sign up. We know that she's been hypercritical of the entire industry of Bitcoin itself. So, I mean, what is the blind spot? And of course, Elizabeth Warren is, a very progressive senator. So what do you think there's a misunderstanding there? Do you think that there's a misconception? Like, what do you think is going on there behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough and challenging. And I'm here in Massachusetts, so she's one of my senators. And I think it's really unfortunate that she fought so hard against what the banks were doing, and kind of greed and fighting for the little guy, so to speak. And really, I mean, I know we've gotten comfortable and used to saying, oh, Elizabeth Warren is an enemy to Bitcoin, but when you really think about it, she should be fully advocating for it, I think, if she really understood it. So no, I think she doesn't understand it. I think her staffers don't understand it. And many in the party, unfortunately, kind of fall into those lines and see as it's, an attack on our climate. It's for money laundering, all of these things we talked about with this bill. It's those things. So once she's rooted in that camp, they have to all fall in line with that. So it's really unfortunate, but I know we've gotten used to saying, oh, she's against it, but she really shouldn't. It's unfortunate. It should be right up her alley.
I agree, because Bitcoin is for the little guy. Like, Bitcoin is for, it allows anyone to have sound money anywhere you are around the world. Doesn't care about your skin color, your religion, your beliefs, whatever. You can download a Bitcoin wallet and you can access the Bitcoin network, and that allows you to connect with the global economy. And before Bitcoin, you didn't, like, if you lived in a certain country, you didn't have this capability, right? So I completely agree. From that point of view, you would think that it's like, this thing is perfect. Like, this is, the most equal, equitable money the world has ever seen, right? Like, what is going on here? So I guess my response to you is, why did you feel like it was so important to start the podcast? Like, why is there a misconception on, I hate to say, because I feel like, what we always say on the show is it's not left versus right. It's not Democrat versus Republican. It's the party of green, which is a party of central bank digital currencies, surveillance, poverty, and nihilism, versus the party of orange, which is the party of freedom, optimism, and prosperity. That's the way that we frame it on this show. But in the traditional fiat camps, why did you feel like it was why do you feel like the political left, so to speak, has let's just say they're more more hostile towards it, I would say. And I'm not trying to generalize it or anything, but it's kind of like a pattern that I've seen, right? It's whether it's mostly it's in the environmental attacks is what I've noticed. So is this is this like a misunderstanding, a misconception? What do you think is going on there? And what are you doing about it to kind of change that? And what are some of the experiences that you've had talking to people, of that specific ideology to kind of get them on the side of the party of orange and wake them up to this new reality?
Yeah, how am I going to fix all of these problems? Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is it's unfortunate because what I have said from the beginning is, I mean, and I didn't fully immerse and jump into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I've been pretty open about this since until early 2021, so probably like February. So I'm relatively new to Bitcoin, and one thing that I did notice is there wasn't a lot of media or narratives articulating viewpoints about Bitcoin other than like a libertarian or right-leaning worldview. But for me, I grew up in the South as well. I grew up and I have a lot of family members from that side. I'm in New England now. So I was able to focus on Bitcoin and kind of ignore the things I didn't want to hear that I thought weren't really related to Bitcoin and focus on Bitcoin. Unfortunately, with polarization everywhere, most people, if they hear one little thing they don't like from someone, they dismiss it. So that's unfortunate. And people shouldn't do that, right? Because there's a lot of people that are saying good things about Bitcoin or about worldviews that I might disagree with them on other points, and that's okay. But I think in general, a lot of us have just gotten into this worldview where we just dismiss someone because they say one thing we don't like rather than seeing the other things they do like. But yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, listen, outside of the Twitter worldview or X or Nostr or whatever, a lot of people just don't know about it, right? They associate in the US, again, it's a specifically US and Western issue. They focus on Bitcoin as crypto. So they focus on crypto bros, Hex, Luna, FTX, all these things we were talking about. They see it as that, right? Oh, these like crypto bros who, would just want to make money, and it's greed. And also additionally, I think the environmental argument has been getting better and better thanks to the likes of like Troy Cross, Daniel Batten, Margot Paez, so many others. There's a lot of Bitcoin miners that are out there talking about how renewable mining is good for the planet and this and that, but actually it's also cheaper. So there's market incentives behind it, all of these things. So I think that narrative is getting better and better. I will also say that doesn't get talked about enough that I try to talk about is folks on the left, myself included, prior to getting into Bitcoin, any talk about money or wealth is like uncomfortable. It's like an icky subject that people just want to pretend doesn't exist, right? Like we want to fix problems in the world. We want to address homelessness. We want to address wealth inequality and do all of these projects around the world, but we pretend that money isn't involved in those things. And that's a problem as well. So I want to encourage progressives on the left to think about money, think about the economy, think about these things that typically are just dismissed and not thought about. And then now let's think about Bitcoin, which is different from all of these things and is actually intended to be a bottom-up resource and intended to combat inflation. Like you were mentioning, Nico, at the beginning of the episode, like the wealthy are benefiting from the current system larger than anyone. So Bitcoin is for everyone, but Bitcoin can especially benefit those that don't have stocks, that don't have all of these assets, all these properties, things like this. It is property for anyone. And that's really what I'm trying to get on and on about. Now, in terms of our audience and things like that, it's a pretty targeted right now, but I'm hoping it will grow. Unfortunately, it'll probably grow more with the bull market, as a lot of things do. But progressives and Bitcoiners, right? We're trying to encourage progressives that Bitcoin's okay. We're trying to tell Bitcoiners like, hey, it's okay to have more progressives in the camp, right? We're not trying to make sure everyone in Bitcoin is progressives and this and that. We're just trying to articulate things in a way that can be understood by the left. Because right now, currently, there still isn't a lot of resources and podcast or media that focuses solely on that. So that's what we're trying to do, is just meet that market fit that doesn't exist currently.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I really think it's important that what you guys are doing, we always say this on the show, like Bitcoin is this great unifier, brings people together with this common denominator, and the common denominator is Bitcoin. So what you guys are doing is very, very important. And we got some time left. So just wanted to give you, like, if you had the chance to
I was going to do the elevator pitch.
Yeah, quick elevator pitch. Like, what is the
progressive?
Yeah, what is a progressive case for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is it's money that can be owned and controlled by you. It's not controlled by billionaires. It's not controlled by the government. It's not controlled by a dictatorship that can say what you can and can't do, right? Like right now, let's say your candidate is in office and you like them. Well, the next election, the candidate that you don't like might be in office, and they might take things that are really valuable away from you, right? So Bitcoin is complete control and ownership by you. It's going up. It fights inflation. So it's personal wealth that you can hold. It's the ultimate like humanitarian piece as well. We use different use cases, like in Afghanistan, women weren't allowed to hold wealth and have access to bank accounts. They were able to hold Bitcoin and escape Taliban regimes with Bitcoin. So it's a humanitarian asset. It's doing amazing things in terms of the environment and actually expanding and growing out the renewable mining industry, which is really, really incredible. So there's a lot of nuances there as well. But Bitcoin perfectly aligns with progressive values just as much as any other value. And people should really just study it and look into it, right? That's the first step. Look into it. Don't dismiss it because a politician says it, because that's the point of the day to be made.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Anyways, Opti, is it time for the meme review? Time?
Kaboom racks.
Kaboom racks.
The Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Kaboom Racks. I get this question all the time. Nico, where should I buy Bitcoin miners? The answer is Kaboom Racks. It's the best place to buy Bitcoin miners. That's where you're going to find the best deals and the best prices. Start your mining utopia today. To check out their racks, you got to go to t.me/Kaboom Racks. Join their Telegram group and start your mining journey today. Kaboom Racks.
Kaboom racks. All right, you already know the deal, guys. This is the meme review. This is your favorite portion of the show where you tag us on memes on Twitter at simplybitcointv or drop them in our Telegram group, t.me/simplybitcoin. And guys, remember to give me the tweet in the Telegram group so that I can give the people credit. We're getting good memes in there. If you don't want them on the show, by all means, just drop the meme. But make sure you drop the tweet in there so I can give the person's credit who we are stealing the memes from. Okay, the first meme is by the @Swan handle, which just rebranded to Bitcoin Signal. And it's just a picture of the UASF hat. And it goes, "Today is Bitcoin Independence Day. On this day, we, the users, celebrate our sovereignty over the Bitcoin protocol." Let's go. Okay. This next one is by the Having Party MF. Shouts out to Big Sean Harris and the whole Meme Factory crew, or whoever is behind the Having Party account. And it goes, Homer's sleeping in his bed very comfortably. And he goes, "When you post about shitcoins being scams and illegal securities before bed so you can wake up and read the dumpster fire with your morning coffee." Yeah, I see you guys. I see you guys doing that. Okay, this next one. Shouts out to our boy Rabe Elevator. He dropped this in the chat yesterday that he was orange pilling Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and he put it in a tweet here, and he goes, "Rave Elevator telling Christopher Lloyd, aka Doc Brown from Back to the Future, about Bitcoin," and it's in the process. He's OPSEC friendly, putting the Bitcoin logo on his head. He's got Bitcoin in his hands. Maybe we can orange pill Doc Brown from Back to the Future. That'd be a thing. All right, this next one is by Meming Bitcoin, and I absolutely love this meme. One of my favorite trolls, but also a solid meme. We have S9 Bitcoin miner, and it's got the little green logo that says eco-friendly, and it goes 0 emissions, electric powered, and computes math. And then we got the TI-84 calculator, also eco-friendly, 0 emissions, electric powered, and computes math. This is the way. Don't let them confuse you guys. Bitcoin is ESG friendly. Okay.
I mean, now that BlackRock is
exactly. Confirmed.
It is totally confirmed.
Bitcoin is eco-friendly. We know this. Okay, the next meme is by the BTC therapist, and it goes, "People are waking up, #BTC." And we have right here on the left how it starts. And this is all of us Bitcoiners right here looking at the fiat crowds, the dollar maxis, and telling them that they're wrong and they should be holding Bitcoin. And this is how it ends. Everyone is a Bitcoiner, and then only the unproductive parasite class are fiat maxis. This is the way. This is why we orange pill. This is why we continue to try to spread the Bitcoin signal outside of our Bitcoin echo chambers on Twitter. Anyways, this next meme is by Maxis Club, and it goes 474, a slight difference. And we have a fiat maxi alligator And it goes, strongest argument, the fiat economist. Trust me, bro, this time will be different. And Bitcoiners in Bitcoin Zen goes, no, don't trust me, verify. Run a node, take Bitcoin into self-custody. This is the way. And this last one, I really just like this like AI generated art here of the Bitcoin logo, but it's a sun and it's a wave. I've been withdrawing and I feel like a reptile out here in the desert. I need an ocean. I need to get to the ocean soon. So hence why I put this one up here for today's meme review. But anyways, at Fab the Fox goes, just as a sunrise brings light and hope to a new day, Bitcoin is ushering in a brighter future for global wealth accumulation and prosperity. Let's go. This is why we do what we do.
Opti is a lizard. He just admitted.
I am cold-blooded.
Opti's a lizard living in the desert. Anyways, all right, guys.
Yeah, drop your meme review score over there.
Drop your memes in the chat. Drop it in the chat. All right, Opti. I'm gonna give it. Oh, it's gonna be a curveball. I'm gonna give it a glass water.
Ooh, is it still essential water?
No.
Wow.
It's filtered.
Wow, he got a water filter. Look at him. Okay, my meme review score is this silk floss in this glass container.
What the fuck?
Hey, fancy. Avoid the plastics, guys.
A plastic bat. Glass. You gotta go with glass. Anyways, Trey, what would you give? What would you give those memes?
Like, I have to find an object in here?
Yeah. Like you can give it
or a throwback. You give it a number. It's fine.
A feeling, a color, an object.
Yeah, you know, I got this new light. I'm still trying to figure out this. So that last one hit me. That was a beautiful drawing. So it's very like this light, just the perfect. You know, when you step out into sun, I'll call it our sun maxis here, and you just feel that glow. That's what I felt with these memes.
That's a great. Oof.
Stephen Lovka in the chat.
Yep.
Applauds that score.
Beautiful. All right. First meme score by Elaine. Frankenstein, the bolts of his neck glimmering like laser eyes as he gives a girl a Bitcoin instead of a flower. I like Frankenstein. I like that. Meme score McLovin, 84.9%.
Okay. Throwback score, but like a 100 on a 100-point scale.
Stats wise, Jenks, I give the memes 1,000 complaints to YouTube for removing another great daily Bitcoin channel, Crypto News Alerts.
I don't know who that is. Sounds like a crypto show, bro.
You're on the wrong channel. The Goblin Dude, Opti is a reptile.
Reptilian confirmed.
Apollo 21, I give the memes the birth of my son, the fourth Bitcoiner. Mic drop. Congrats, bro.
The best way to make Bitcoiners is to make Bitcoiners.
The Tyler Durden swallowed the red pill. I give a half empty cup of cold coffee. Very nice. Next score, Narwhal Tacos. I give the memes all my hex because turns out it's not actually worth anything. Rave Elevator. One slice of mushroom pizza. Okay.
I don't know about that, bro.
Okay. UTXO, give the memes an assortment of household items in a glass container. Okay, it's a very thoughtful score. I like that.
Oh man, I like that. This one's PG-13 friendly, Nico.
Neutered Field selling tests for sats. Okay.
Neutered Field. It was neutral fields, bro, not neutered fields.
I put 2 and 2 together. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us on an episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. We appreciate you all. I'm Nico. As Mouse with my co-host Opti. This is our special guest Trey. Trey, thank you so much for coming on today. Why don't you tell everybody where they could find you?
Yeah, head over to theprogressivebitcoiner.com. You can see all of our social links and stuff there. I'm on Nostr as well, and you can find us on Twitter at TPBPodX, whatever. God, just come on Nostr as well. We're all on Nostr. Like, get over there if you're not already. But find us on the website I just mentioned, TPBPod. And thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate it. All right, guys, if you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. If you feel like we provided you value, consider subscribing. But the number one thing you could do to push the peaceful Bitcoin revolution is share this content. In fact, share all Bitcoin content. Don't be exclusive, be inclusive. Don't share shitcoin content. That's counterproductive. And if you want to join the after party, we are hosting a Twitter Spaces today with our friends over at Swan Bitcoin, best place to build your Bitcoin stack. So definitely hang out with us over there. It's going to be going on until 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Opti is going to be holding it down. Until then, guys, love you all. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Peace out, y'all.
All right, guys, you already know the deal. This is the Simply Bitcoin Twitter Spaces. So come up here, add your 2 sats to the conversation. I think today might get a little spicy. We, of course, run this till 2 p.m. Eastern time. I will be picking on some friends because I feel like we ranted enough today. But man, what a crazy breakdown of this bill. That was something else. Actually, I will have to find the